Hey guys, Brandon back with another Facebook Live for Flyin Miata. Today we're going to talk about how not to rip the sway bar off the front of your ND or our sway bar reinforcement kit. So as always, you have questions, drop them in the comments. We'll try to get to them at the end of my little spiel here. If we don't get to them, then we'll answer them in the comments later. So we've had our Stage 1 sway bar reinforcement kit for a long time. And we're going to talk about the Stage 2 today, but a real quick rundown on it. So why do you want the sway bar reinforcement kit? Basically, this is where the sway bar attaches. We're going to pretend that it's right there. So your sway bar attaches right here. What can happen on an ND is if you have stock suspension, so really soft springs, but you have a big sway bar, so a really stiff sway bar, the sway bar is going to carry much more of that load than it was originally intended to, and it's not going to have the backup of stiffer springs, so it's going to rip this piece of sheet metal off of the subframe. You could try to weld it back on, or you can just replace your subframe altogether, which is expensive and a giant headache, and who wants to do that? So why do you need this? Really the most important group of people that need it, again, are stock shocks and springs, big sway bar, and then also very sticky tires. That's going to be the most critical group to need the reinforcement kit. That having been said, it's not a bad idea for anyone with an ND, but it decreases in necessity. If you have stiff springs and your tires aren't crazy sticky, it's a little less likely that you're going to need it. So this is our Stage 1. So the way it works, just briefly, this slips in right here. I can't tell if that's lined up or not. That zip tie is kind of in the way back there. But basically, you've got a bolt here. There's two right here, excuse me, that, or one that is where the sway bar actually mounts to the chassis. And then this tab comes over and holds the front of this down. So the Stage 1 will work with nearly any sway bar. Basically, as long as your bracket here isn't overly bulky, that just slips on like that, holds it down, pretty straightforward. But we have the Stage 2 kit now. So what the Stage 2 is this, it's this piece, along with this billet reinforced bracket. So we do offer this with just just a billet sway bar mount or bushing mount, like we do for the NAs and the NBs. We have, this one was a little more difficult to design. It has slotted holes here because there's not much room. So the frame, the chassis comes over here, so you can't put it down here because it would interfere. You've got to actually slide it in from the side, which is why those guys are slotted. There's a nice counterbore there to hold things in place. We've made it low profile so it fits all that. So this guy is a Stage 2 again. So what happens here, you get the bracket, you get the billet bushing bracket, and you get some hardware here. And you'd actually get more hardware. This is the hardware pack if you already have this Stage 1, but you buy, excuse me, you buy just the billet pieces as a Stage 2 upgrade. If you buy it all together, it's similar, you just get more hardware. So this goes in here. Again, that zip tie back there is kind of in the way. This goes over here with the bushing in it. We'll pretend like that's in there. And there you go. So it's a much more solid, comprehensive solution than the Stage 1. The Stage 1 works. We haven't, there have been no complaints of issues with mount failures because of the Stage 1, but the Stage 2 is just that much nicer, just that much more comprehensive. Now, one of the big differences is that the Stage 1, again, will work with any sway bar as long as the bracket isn't goofy, is kind of the short version. So maybe not literally any, but practically any. The Stage 2 is designed specifically for, the bushings for the FM sway bar. So they will not work with non-FM bars. So Got them in stock, ready to go. Again, you can do the upgrade kit. You can do the complete kit. Really pretty straightforward. So, got some questions that you guys put in the comments earlier. I'll go through those real quick. Why do I need these? Again, so that you don't rip these guys off. Sticky tires, stiff sway bar, soft suspension is the most important group, but it's cheap insurance for everybody. Why is it called the Stage 2? Stage 2 versus Stage 1. I think I covered that. Will this help reduce flex from the end links as well in combo with FM sway, FM end links, and FM reinforcement kit? No. So the end links aren't really a sway kind of thing. It's a separate system as a short version. So the way a sway bar works really briefly is in torsional rigidity. So its resistance to twist is what keeps the car level instead of swaying as you go through corners. The end links, the rigidity of the end link doesn't really have anything to do with that. I mean, if you have a wet spaghetti noodle for an end link, it won't work well. Outside of that, it's not really that big of a deal. And adjustability is really nice, like our end links. So it's a good thing, but this is a separate problem. This is addressing the tendency of this to fail during use, whereas the end link is just attaching the sway bar to the control arm, basically. So a different thing. How hard is the install? Is this a DIY part for the average person? Yeah, it's pretty easy install. You have to get the wheels off just for access. You need to take, there's a big nut in here you'll have to take off. This, again, slips up in there. A short version, it's really a pretty easy install. If you do not have the mechanical aptitude to do an oil change, no worries, but you probably shouldn't try this. If you are vaguely mechanically competent, you can probably take care of it. So, worth getting for OEM bars on a track day focused car. That's going to fall more into the cheap insurance category. So if you still have the stock sway bars, you're not going to put that much load into this because your sway bars are soft and they're going to deflect, they're going to twist more easily, which means that less load is going to go into this. So I would still suggest it. Again, cheap insurance. I'm not going to tell you you have to have it. I'm not going to tell you that it's definitely going to fail if you don't have those brackets. You'll probably be okay, but you'll definitely be okay if you have the reinforcement kit, either one of the kits, really. Is there any welding required? Absolutely, but we take care of that for you in the fabrication process. So for installation, no welding required at all. Does my daily driven ND need these if I have aftermarket sway bars? Again, these are all kind of different versions of the same question. If you have aftermarket sway bars and stock springs, it is a greater likelihood. The fact that it's not on the track means that it's a lesser likelihood. If you, and there's no mention here about the springs. So if you have stiffer springs, lesser likelihood, softer springs, greater likelihood. So when in doubt, get them, because they're really the only drawback is a little bit of extra money. Excuse me. Do we have these for other generations? Kind of. So the NC doesn't need them. We haven't found any kind of issues there. For the NA and the NB, you generally don't need them. We do have a basically replacement kit. So you would remove the original sway bar mount and you would bolt and ideally weld that one into place, in place of the original mount to strengthen that. Most cars don't need that. That setup is definitely more of a headache to install than this one. So most cars can get away without it. My personal car, I've got an NA, track days, street use. It's got suspension and sway bars and such on it. And I've done nothing to reinforce the sway bar mounts, and I've had zero issues with it. So probably not, but we have an option if you need it. So that is all the questions that I have Kyle, do we have any questions? Nope. Okay, I must have covered all of the questions. Really, it's pretty straightforward. It's easy, and if you are in doubt, get it, because cheap insurance. So, thank you for tuning in, as always. If you guys think of any questions later on, put them in the comments. We will answer them there. And be sure to follow us on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. and tune in next week for another Facebook Live. We'll see you guys then.